Hello, my friends, and thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I would like to talk about how to understand the Day of the Lord passages. If you have a concordance, or if you're able to search online on a website such as Blue Letter Bible, or maybe you have some good Bible software for your computer or tablet, you can look up all the passages in the Old Testament first about the day of the Lord. And you will see the expectation that God had given his people about what the day of the Lord will do and accomplish. So tonight I wanted to look at one example, and then I wanted to walk through the process of how to understand it. So let me read Zephaniah chapter 1, verses 14 through 18. The great day of the Lord is near and rapidly approaching. Listen, the day of the Lord. Then the warrior's cry is bitter. That day is a day of wrath, a day of trouble and distress, a day of destruction and desolation, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and total darkness, a day of trumpet blast and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the high corner towers. I will bring distress on mankind, and they will walk like the blind, because they have sinned against the Lord. Their blood will be poured out like dust, and their flesh like dung. Their silver and their gold will be unable to rescue them on the day of the Lord's wrath. So this is what I did, and I would encourage you to do the same. And that is, make some categories as you study these passages. And this is what I did. I made categories for God, for man, for the earth and sea, for the cosmos, and for events before and after the day of the Lord, in case anything is mentioned in a chronological sense. And what this will do, as you look at the passage, you start to ask yourself, what does this tell me about who God is or about what God is going to do? Then ask yourself, what is this teaching me about man's response or expectation, or what is going to happen to him? Then take those passages and look at how it affects the earth and the sea. Because when these events take place, there will be topographical changes to the earth itself. And then look at how it affects the cosmos. What is going on above the earth? The sun, the moon, the stars. And then what are the events that are described which will take place before the day of the Lord? Now, if you just take those categories, and you can come up with more for sure, but those were the categories I originally came up with. And as I was looking at the scripture, what I would do is I would look at each of the verses in the passage about the day of the Lord and just ask myself, is this something I need to track about what God is doing or about God? What is happening to man during this time? For example, if you look at verse 14, it says, the warrior's cry is bitter. If you look at verse 17, it says that distress will come upon mankind, that their blood will be poured out like dust, and their flesh like dung. It says that their wealth will not be able to rescue them. So they will be in a very perilous position during this time. Then you might want to ask yourself, what is happening to the earth or the sea? Well, in this particular passage, there's nothing about the sea, but it does tell us that the earth itself will be a place of destruction and desolation. There will be great darkness and gloom. A day of clouds and total darkness, it says. And you could ask yourself, does it tell us anything about the cosmos? Well, nothing specifically in this passage. Well, are there any events that we need to write down that will take place before or after the day of the Lord? Well, not in this passage. But if you take the time to walk through all the passages where the day of the Lord is being described, you will have confidence in understanding how the New Testament then starts applying this very important sequence of events. And you will see that Jesus and Peter and Paul and John preached and taught consistent with the Old Testament expectation. And then you have the writers of the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, in addition to the others. And when they use the phrase Day of the Lord, they are not changing any of it. They are consistent with the Old Testament expectation. So I would encourage you to start with the Old Testament and see how it is being described. And then when you get to the New Testament, sometimes what you see is just one of the events that take place during the Day of the Lord. And then something that is said will take place before that. And so if we were to build out a timeline, we will be able to take those Bible passages that say that this happens before the day of the Lord. And we will be able to have confidence that when we see other events taking place in the New Testament descriptions, we will say, oh, I know where that goes. I know what time frame that will happen in. And my friend, you will be stronger in your understanding of the Scripture. So if you'll just take the time to do it, it sounds like a big task. It's really not. You could really accomplish this in just a few hours of study, and it is absolutely worth it. So what I plan to do at this point is to start going through these Day of the Lord passages and then get into the New Testament and walk through how I came to the conclusion I have about the pre-wrath rapture. And my friend, I am so confident that if you follow this with me, you too will either embrace pre-wrath if you haven't, or if you already have, that you will feel even stronger in your understanding of what God is going to do and how He is going to unfold His plan. Thank you again.